Hello everybody and welcome to this week's bonus podcast. We're going to be talking about the lovely light-hearted topic of funerals today on Coronation Street because it's the week of Jim McDonald's funeral, so it is in Weatherfield, and we thought we'd take this opportunity, thank you, to cast our minds back and in memoriam think about some of Coronation Street's greatest send-offs.
You don't always get a funeral, do you? Not every character gets a funeral.
No.
This year...
Robert Preston's still on the waiting list.
How many people have died this year? Is it just two?
Well, Billy's died this year. He got a funeral, didn't he?
That's what I mean. Billy and Jim both have funerals.
Yeah, I think generally one gets reference. It's just about whether or not we see it on screen.
Yeah, of course.
And whether or not they want to use it as a vehicle for drama.
I didn't mean does every character get a funeral? Because of course they do.
Apart from Robert Preston.
No, but he must have had one. It's all made up, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, funerals are an important part of life, and I think that in Coronation Street they can be used as vehicles for plot progression or drama or revelations or fights, and we're going to be covering all the whole gamut of funerals that Corrie has offered us in the past. What would you say makes a Corrie funeral? I mean, if a character's popped the clogs on Corrie, what are you kind of hoping for in a funeral?
Before I say my answer,
yes.
Can I just quickly have a quick disclaimer? This is going to upset you. You shouldn't listen. This is a very sensitive topic.
Thank you.
We're going to be matter of fact about this.
It's okay because Corrie's done some funny funerals in the past.
It is really sad and harrowing. We are going to talk about children's funerals, and we will let you know before we start talking about that, before we get to it. So just prepare yourselves. If you don't find George Shuttleworth funny, then you're not going to really enjoy this episode.
No, I think, mate, is that the benchmark?
If you go, ha ha ha, I loved it when Pat Finn got put in a dog poo bin.
Yeah, that's going to be absolutely fine.
Right. So Corrie funeral.
Yes.
I think,
what are you looking for?
Okay, the trouble with them is that, say if we did them last year, we would have one a month. But they need to be momentous, don't they? They need to feel like real. They need to feel real. It needs to be a funeral for us, the viewers. It needs to be something significant, like a significant character. I don't want to waste my time watching somebody I don't care about having their funeral unless something fun happens during it. But
sometimes the legacy of the character kind of gives the funeral its weight on its own, but then you got to be careful because you can sometimes think you can ride on the fact that we're saying goodbye to this particular legend and hope that it's just going to go okay, and then it doesn't necessarily. But
I want everyone wearing black. I want people coming out of their houses and wiping their nose with tissues.
I think that having people... See, this is the thing that I think that we've lost a little bit since the Shuttleworths have been there. We're kind of missing the row of hearses going along the cobbles, past the rovers and then out, and then everyone's standing at their door and kind of paying their respects. I know you can't have enough people on the 8 episode to be able to do that these days necessarily.
Well,
but they're all just pull off from Shuttleworths these days, don't they? The tiny gaggle.
So the first funeral that we saw, was that Ida Barlow?
Yes, the first Corrie funeral was Ida Barlow. That's not available online at the moment.
No, what was the first one you could actually watch?
I think it's probably...
is it Martha?
Yeah, Martha Longhurst maybe. It's really difficult. I'm going to say I spent an incredibly long amount of time
spent all of
rehearsing for this on Sunday. Not rehearsing, researching, sorry. And Corriepedia, they are very, very great guys, but they don't have a page on Corrie funeral, so I couldn't just easily click on the link.
Well, you've made it now.
I know 100%. I haven't, because we are not going to talk about every single Coronation Street funeral. Just one of the most memorable ones, I suppose.
Anyway, so the reason I brought it up is that I feel like that kind of early days template really hasn't changed, and I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about funerals, and I think we all do. Funerals and weddings and christenings, they're all the same, okay? And
I think funerals are even more all the same than some of the others. That's the thing, isn't it?
I know some people don't like that, and they think that that's, they want to be original or unique, and they think that, this person's so special, they need something more. But honestly, as we find comfort in these rituals, don't we? Like, on Sunday, you were watching all these YouTube videos, and I was playing on the Pokemon game that's just come out, and so your headphones ran out, so you started like playing the audio. I didn't care if you played the audio, but
Right.
you wanted to listen to it on your headphones. When they ran out, you played the audio out loud, and the amount of times I heard ashes to ashes, dust to dust was crazy. But equally, there's something really comforting in knowing that like centuries of people have had those same words said
Yeah.
over them, and then everybody in the church all together knows this is closure. This is the end of a chapter of somebody's life, and we're moving on. Now, obviously, this is if you're Christian, if you're from a Christian country, and you have these kind of things. Because we're going to talk about different kinds of funerals, because Coronation Street is really good at kind of showing a spectrum of different funerals.
Funeral experiences.
Yeah, so we've seen all different kinds of funerals on Corrie, but obviously the most common one is a Protestant Christian funeral.
especially going back to the early days. I mean, they certainly weren't having the Muslim burials, cremations back then, were they?
So, like, a Corrie funeral is everyone comes out of their houses, all wearing black, wiping their nose, hearses down the cobbles, people talking a little bit about what's about to happen. Then we teleport to the church, and it has to be my favourite church.
Yeah, St Mary's Church.
St Mary's Church. And then they all stand outside, maybe. Or maybe
I think
they stand
standing outside having a chat about some kind of drama or remembering or little anecdotes is quite important.
Back in the good old days, they would have had a cigarette.
Yes.
I think we've lost something without characters vaping or
a stress
smoking.
smoke.
And then we have the service, and then something dramatic maybe happens.
I think that it's important to have the burial scene as well. And
Yes.
I kind of get the feeling that we don't get that as much these days.
Yeah, the burial scene. I don't think I've been to many funerals where I've gone to a burial and then the rovers for sandwiches.
Yeah, the wake afterwards, which is again where lots of the drama can happen.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that soap is
You don't
all
have to reinvent the wheel, do you?
No, and soap is all about community, and what I'm kind of looking for is an opportunity for the people of the street to get together to remember these legacy characters.
Yeah, and comment on.
Just comment on them, and some of them having a bit of a gossip, some of them having a bit of a cry and a comforting hug. Soap and Corrie should all be about community building, and this is, through grief, an opportunity for communities to come together and let bygones be bygones, which is why you kind of want as many of the cast there as possible, which doesn't happen quite so much these days. They have to kind of fill up the pews with some non-speaking extras, don't they?
I think that the most poignant ones are the ones where the actor has died.
Yes.
And it has kind of prompted the funeral to take place. So Blanche, Deirdre, Betty.
Deirdre's a really good idea, actually.
Stan Ogden.
Yes, yeah, for sure, because it can be saying goodbye to the character as well.
Yeah.
You get back in the day when you had like when Jack Walker died, because the actor he sadly passed away kind of out of nowhere. And then they didn't have a proper on-screen funeral for him, but it was like within a week or so, because they were so soon to transmission. Yeah, and Jerry Booth, when Graham Hepperforth died, it was very quick turnaround, because that's just the way it was those days.
Well, I think also they're probably more sensitive to the wishes of the family.
Yeah, I think so.
That's really, imagine you literally probably come home from the service and see the character being toasted on telly.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
No, you're right. I mean, like, for example, with Deirdre, there was a good 6 months or so, I think it was, for Deirdre. But I think Betty was maybe more on the longer side that we got. I don't remember.
I think I don't know. I think it really is a case-by-case basis of what's the most respectful thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's in consultation with the families is really important.
Imagine being a soap legend's family member and just knowing that your loved one, when they die, you're going to have 2 funerals for them. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you do hear, you also hear stories about the actors going along or watching their character's funeral. Yeah. Like, was it Stephen Hancock who played Ernest Bishop, was kind of there in the background
like a ghost,
when his funeral was taking place, and I'm sure that in this week's episodes, Charlie Lawson will be watching Jim McDonough's funeral.
Yeah.
If indeed it's on screen, I literally don't know. By the time this episode comes out, it'll probably have been on,
You'll
so
know.
people will know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of not imagining there's going to be an on-screen funeral for
Really?
Jim. Well, there wasn't for Les Battersby last year, was there? I don't think they'd want to, especially not waste a location trip for a character that hasn't been on the show for a jolly long time.
It's not a waste. It's a tribute, Michael.
As in Coronation Street as well, we do have the Shuttleworths, don't we? I don't think the other soaps have got funeral directors as characters.
About EastEnders and Hollyoaks, but I do know I'm very jealous of Emmerdale's graveyard.
Yeah, I love Emmerdale's graveyard, and it kind of makes sense.
Is it a graveyard or a cemetery? I can't remember whether it's attached to a church or not.
There is a church nearby within spitting distance, isn't there? And that is really interesting to be able to walk along and see all these characters' graves, which you obviously can't do on Coronation Street.
I love that.
What they'll
That's
often
so
do in
cool.
Coronation Street, they don't always use the same church, but if they do go through a spree of having funerals at the same church, they'll often use the same plot every time.
I
know. And because otherwise the whole actual funeral will be. The whole graveyard will be full up with soap gravestones or...
Imagine just going to see that.
Not that you can go and visit any soap stones if you go there, by the way.
No, they're all
just pop it
taken
down
away.
and then take it away again. Yeah.
Imagine going to see a nan and then next to it is like, yeah, it's Jim McDonald. Would you like to...
We did find the exact spot that Sinead was buried, didn't we, when we went there one time? I did.
You were grieving?
Yes.
Would you like a plot at St Mary's that we can rent out to ITV?
Oh yeah,
that would be awesome. That would be.
Idea.
We did talk before about like, would you want your ashes scattered on the cobbles? And of course, we cannot possibly condone such behaviour. But I know that we said that a crew member had their ashes put in a garden in Emmerdale.
Yeah.
And we said, oh, what would you do? How would you want to be remembered? I think being buried in St Mary's graveyard and having allowing them to
rubbing shoulders with some of the Corrie graves.
Bring your polystyrene overlay for his grave. You know, like when people get their teeth chiseled down for veneers, you could have that for your gravestone, and then you can just slot whatever you like over the top.
Do you think that
that's just an idea that for free?
I know.
If anyone's listening,
I think that going back to what we were saying about the Shuttleworths, it feels like they make more of it these days because than we did in Archie's time back 20 years ago, because he didn't have a business on the street, and yes, he was an undertaker, and they made some episodes or some jokes or whatever about I buried so and so today, and then Blanche went through her phase of I like to pop along to a funeral, I love a good funeral me, and she would sit there at the back eating her boiled sweets. But it feels like now we have more is made of there being a funeral service out of the Coronation Street. I know it's Victoria Street. And I remember when it came in, people were worried that it would become a little bit too farcical. And I think it has.
It really
in some ways. It can
upsetting if you are going through that process. I can imagine it not being a hilarious...
Yeah.
Like
there's been some great stuff that's come out of it, and I love George. I think that Tony Maudsley does a really good job of living up to the legacy of Roy Hudd. I mean, you can't reach the high heights of Roy Hudd, I think, but
I don't know. I think he does I think he's brilliant, and I think that the good thing about him is that I think that Roy Hudd had this kind of like grandfatherly kind of warmth to him. But Tony Maudsley has this gravitas that he can turn on when he's being the statesman, the funeral director, and then he also can, turn on the comedy, and he's so.
I think the thing flexible.
Well, not flexible, but everyone can think of the word I mean.
I think with Archie, if I'm kind of remembering right, he was like much felt in control. He was, nothing ever really went wrong for him particularly. He was never at a stage where, oh no, my business is going to collapse.
Oh no, there wasn't like,
with
oh
George,
my gosh,
it's
I've
a
lost
little
the
bit
ashes.
more. Yeah, George, it's a little bit more chaotic. So they are leaning more into the comedy. I mean, Archie was a comic character, going around measuring up, 5'7". I'm not wrong. But George is a little bit more leaning onto the buffoony side of comedy.
George is like, it's irrelevant how tall you are because we don't make them to measure.
Exactly. well, I'm sure we'll come back to the idea of the Shuttleworth later. The kind of the structure for this episode, when I was going through it, there's various types of. You got the funny Corrie funeral, you got the child Corrie funeral, you got the dramatic Corrie funeral. I wanted to just start off by cherry picking a couple of classic Corrie funerals from across the year and just kind of saying our memories of it. We watched some clips over the last few days, and we might be able to recommend some to people who maybe are not Corrie funeral aficionados. Unfortunately, the first one that we said we can't see, because it's not on YouTube as far as I know, was Ida's funeral, Ida Barlow, Ken's mum. But the feeling that I got as I was watching some of the kind of the vintage Corrie funerals, if you like, is it did feel a lot more morose and maudlin, and it's like, you are gonna feel sad about this. It almost felt like you were going along to a real funeral. Because, speaking about Martha's funeral, which you can see online, Martha Longhurst, that was like super depressing, and they actually had for that one about 3 minutes worth of no dialogue, just the car going through the streets and pulling up in the cemetery and characters milling out. No dialogue whatsoever, just this classical music. It was Si Simple Est Celle History, which is my perfect Italian, I don't know, by Pierre Avray and his orchestra, and it really did a fantastic job of making you feel, God, this is depressing. Do you know what I mean? And I think from what I hear from Ida's funeral, it was similar, because you hear of like just these long winding car journeys, hearse driving through the streets in fake rain, no less. And this must have been something really special for less than a year after the film, after Corrie started, having people coming out of their houses pretending it was raining, with like an overlay, and then just cars going through the streets and seeing people against location shoots of like women scrubbing at their steps and men raising their pint glasses, just as you don't get that at all these days, do you?
It felt like a documentary you were watching. It did. About somebody's real life, or like, when there's like a horrible like natural disaster, and they're just showing you clips of sad things. It's kind of like a very old-fashioned, dated. I remember watching documentaries when I was a kid with like sad, tragic scenes and flute music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look at these sad children. Like how sad they are.
Yeah.
Just let's all think about and listen to flutes.
And I don't think with some of these earlier ones you actually got to see much in the way of the service either. It was all about the misery of what's happening on the journey, and then maybe going back to eating the Sharples or going back to the mission hall for sandwiches afterwards.
Now,
go on.
God, I was just going to say, isn't part of the service one of the things that the priest, the vicar might say, or whoever's conducting it, something about, life's miserable. Like we live our miserable existence and pass into dust or something. And one of them, I was like, oh my God, this is actually really bleak.
And I think these more modern Coronation Street funerals do feel more like a celebration of the life of the character that maybe some of these older ones didn't quite capture. Not that they needed to, because I think whatever mood they were going for, they really, really hit it. Because it's proper bleak.
I think that's the fashion, isn't it? Like that's the done thing now, is to say, oh, we're not having a funeral, we're having a celebration of life, or come and share your memories, or wear bright colours, or celebrate the life of so and so, and everybody has to be happy and sort of talk about nice memories.
Yeah.
Whereas back in, the 60s, they were like, look, we've had a war, everyone died, it's sad. Before that, we had Spanish flu. Let's just accept life is crap and then you die.
Yeah. With the Martha funeral, and I think that particular one really did capture the mood of the viewers and the cast, didn't it?
This was 1964, and she was a massive character.
Yeah, and nobody really wanted her to leave, and she was the one that when she died in the snug, Peter Adamson, who played Len Fairclough, kind of paused before saying he's dead in case they wanted to cut it. She's dead, sorry, in case they wanted to cut it and change their minds. So everyone was, proper miserable about the fact that she was going. And this one, you get to see everyone crowded around the grave, and it's kind of just. I think that the black and white graininess adds to the mood as well. And then you get lots of shots from the coffin's POV of people going looming over you. And there's this really touching moment where Ina's there. She's like, everyone's moved on after the funeral's finished, and she's left there standing because Martha, being her best friend, just utterly bereft. And then Leonard Swindley comes along and he says, Mrs. Sharples, one feels so inadequate. And that's, apart from the reading that I think you got to hear, that was the only dialogue there was. And Ina walks off as he's in the middle of speaking as well. It's just really, really depressing. And it's fascinating to compare to the modern funerals, which doesn't have any of that. I mean, I couldn't imagine at all in an old 1960s Corrie funeral people having fisticuffs or somebody saying, you know what, I'm not going to read my speech, I'm going to read it from the heart. That's another classic Corrie trope there.
I can't remember the last time a Corrie funeral really felt like it set out to make you sad. I think they all do a little bit, but in no way, anyway, like these did.
No. I mean, I think some of the ones for younger characters do a little bit more. Like, but even like Ollie had a joyful memorial service in Victoria Gardens with balloons and streamers and everything.
I'm going to say something here. And again, like I said before, if this is a triggering subject, I think, you've got to look after yourself and make sure that you're not upsetting yourself. But like, with a child funeral on Coronation Street, with the best will in the world, you are tapping into the real core human, part of us that cares about a child dying. You're not talking about a character, because this character really doesn't exist in the same way. Like, children characters on Coronation Street are not on the same level as the characters.
No. They
don't have enough screen time. It's not to do with being a kid. It's not having enough screen time. So you are kind of tapping into this really core fundamental part of humanity, and hoping that you can ride that sentiment and use it to create the drama and the sadness. Do you know?
Yeah.
Whereas these funerals for characters that we've got to know their personalities and things, it's a bit different. Obviously, I'm not talking about real children. I'm just talking about the way that characters are depicted on Coronation. Yeah. Like, if Simon had died, it'd have been really sad. But some of the other, I don't know this kid. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Going back to
imagine if Simon had died in the fire with Leanne the rabbit.
I know, just imagine. No. I just wanted to drop in a couple of other interesting curios about some of these earlier funerals. What I read, my favourite fact about the Ida Barlow funeral.
I don't know if we've said this yet, but this is obviously Ken's mum.
Yeah, no, I think I said that. They had to get a hearse onto the set. And back then, when you had your studio set and you couldn't fit the whole street on at once, and it was no room whatsoever.
Is this also the time when there wasn't actually a curb?
Yeah.
They just had painted. Yeah, everything was painted, and so they had to pretend to step down onto the cobbles.
But this was the biggest they'd ever had to build this set. And they got the hearse onto it, but then they had to turn it round afterwards. So they greased the floor and sort of twizzled it round, apparently, which is I love. And also, if you watch it, apparently, you can't. They don't even have all the houses in. So you've got somebody standing outside of number 9 Coronation Street, and then right next door to that is the corner shop. So it's like number 11 and number 13 don't even exist.
Because they were like, we don't have enough
We haven't got room for it, so we'll just have number 9 next to the corner shop for this scene. It's funny what people were put up with in those days, isn't it?
Because they didn't have
the
internet.
We nitpick now. Yeah, probably most people didn't know.
So this was not even a year into Coronation Street, and they were tackling this really big story that made them have to kind of build the set again.
Yeah.
How crazy,
know,
can you imagine?
It really is. I think when you talk about kind of vintage or classic Corrie funerals, another one that's worth mentioning is Stan Ogden, because Hilda crying over his glasses after the funeral is probably one of Corrie's most iconically sad, famously tragic moments, isn't it? And it's not necessarily the funeral there that's the big centerpiece of the episode, because you get to see people getting into the cars, you see everyone stand around the graveside saying the Lord's Prayer, but it's the focus is all on Hilda, and the story was that she hadn't been able to bring herself to cry since Stan had left. And
died.
Had left this mortal plane, since he died. And then at the end of the episode, when she's brought all of his bits and bobs from the hospital, that's when she breaks down in tears. And Jean Alexander got a Royal Television Society award for that, didn't she? That was such a groundbreakingly real and raw performance.
And again, just to remind everybody, this was Bernard Ewens had died.
Yeah, Bernard Ewens had died earlier that year.
Completely unexpectedly. He said he wanted to die on the job, and he kind of did. They didn't know he was going to die, and he just filmed his final...
Well,
he filmed it. His final scene was not like, I'm off to hospital.
No, his final scenes had been months before, but in the show he'd been bedridden, and you sometimes heard banging, supposedly coming through from the ceiling. But it was absolutely tragic, and I think it was mostly down to the fabulous performance of Jean Alexander, and the love that the viewers had for them as a couple.
Yes. I think lots of people who are Corrie fans who might not have seen this is 1984. This was the end of November.
Yeah.
A lot of you will have seen the clip of Hilda crying over the glasses, and this gets used in award shows and probably in the compilation experience and all that kind of stuff. But when you actually watch it in situ, it's actually even sadder than you imagine, because Jean Alexander opens this case and looks at the glasses, and then she kind of collapses over the top of them and cries, and it sounds like, and I know it sounds stupid, it sounds like Jean Alexander crying and not Hilda Ogden. And I don't know why I think that there's a distinction there, but they really, really did feel like a real raw grief.
Yeah,
and then
genuine tears.
The music doesn't start straight away when the credits start rolling.
That's what I like on a Corrie funeral. The silent credits. So they did that often. They have the silent credits. Longer. I'm
just going to say, it goes on longer than you think it would do from the clip shows, and it really is quite harrowing.
Silent credits and silent ad bumpers are often done on Coronation Street funeral. I don't think they do it these days at all, but I think that can be really, really affecting, can't it?
I love Corrie, but I'm going to say I've got a real beef with the ending theme sometimes.
It sometimes, it just doesn't quite fit the mood, does it?
Okay, no, calm down. We're not doing that now. It's sad.
Yeah.
We've got to be sad.
Yeah, so you can put all the fancy camera effects or sound effects on your show that you want, Ian McLeod, but sometimes just silence.
Yes. Silence
does the job.
Is the strongest.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
The strongest music.
I'm gonna say if you're a Corrie funeral hunter and you want to track one down, then that's. I think all of that one and Martha's are definitely worth looking at, just to see what Corrie funerals were like back in the day.
You got to be careful though.
What I was going to say, if you watch Stan's funeral episode, you also get a bonus appearance from Elaine, who we've just Elaine, Bill's wife, who we just saw or heard die recently, and you get to see what she's like if you watch that.
Fake mum
courting her. Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, don't watch too many of these, because they are actually really sad.
Oh, it was a little bit miserable going through these on Sunday. I'm not going to lie.
It was bad enough today.
Yeah.
I didn't watch all of them.
Kind of moving on to some kind of more kind of classic era, golden era, 90s sort of funerals. I definitely remember Judy Mallett's funeral. I remember when she died, putting out the washing, and Gary finding
died
her.
Doing what she loved.
Yeah. that really kind of stuck with me for a while as when I was younger, and poor Gary was utterly bereft.
Do you think it was like a really seminal point of your life? Because this was when we were leaving school. We were like young. We were just getting to be young adults, kind of embarking on the world. And probably you watching this was like traumatic.
Yeah, I think it was.
Because you're like, oh, you could just die. You could just die at any moment.
Yeah,
for no reason.
And Judy and Gary Mallet, were a great couple, and they don't go down in Corrie history as one of the best couples or anything, but I genuinely believed how much love they had for each other and how much they were perfectly suited to each other. And poor Gary was left with William and Rebecca, the little kids, and his tears when he found her were just utterly raw and heart-wrenching. And they just pull on the heartstrings so much during the funeral, because he's given this speech up there, and he breaks down about when he's talking about how Judy was the best thing that's happened to him, and you're pulling on the heartstrings as there's a couple of teddy bears there that go into the coffin. Onto the coffin when she's being lowered into the ground. That was a really good. It wasn't a all singing, all dancing, or hey, something mega dramatic's going to happen here. But as a kind of classic 90s era Corrie funeral, I think that did a good job of just being, it's really sad.
The two babies by the graveside as their mother is buried is just horrible.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know how they managed to fill that grave with teddy bears, though. That's really odd.
2 teddy bears, darling.
I thought they were just throwing bears in lieu of soil.
No. I think having a good soil toss on a Coronation Street funeral is something I always look forward to, because often there's drama there about who has the right to throw the soil. Because we had that with again, I keep just going back to the child funerals, but Billy, who was Sarah and Todd's young child, who passed away very incredibly young, within days. There was a big drama there about Todd wasn't allowed to the funeral because the reason that there was so much drama that caused Sarah to go into early labour was about when it all came out about him being gay, and then so he was banned from the funeral, and then he eventually turns up along with, I think Eileen and Jason turn up first, and then Todd's there, and then Sarah passes him the pot of dirt and said, no, you can join
ceremonial pots of dirt
and toss them in as well. And so that was a really, really good one. I think Alma's funeral.
I don't like the throwing of the dirt.
Do you not?
No.
Why?
I find it very. I don't like it. I didn't do it when I had the chance, did I? I don't like it. It feels disrespectful.
I don't know.
It's like, yeah, go on then, get on with it. I say no, bring in the digger. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to pay for this.
Another 90s... No, was that 90s? No, early 2000s funeral that stands out to me was Alma's. And she was one of the first Corrie funerals that kind of bucked the trend, and it was a very humanist funeral.
Yes.
And they didn't have it at church, and they didn't have the hymns. Like, they have Over the Rainbow playing as the coffin is brought in, and the humanist celebrant was very much, this isn't about faith, this is about celebrating the life of Alma. And I think that was very appropriate for that character.
Can I say something about this?
Yeah?
I found this a bit jarring, and I was really confused about it, because I'm not opposed to humanist funerals at all. I think that, great if that's what you want to do. I think the concept is good, but I don't know whether I don't know if there's a set terminology or like a reading that they do at every funeral, or if Coronation Street was like introducing the concept of humanist funerals. I just thought the idea of standing up in front of everyone going, we're not going to talk about religion now, we're talking about something else. We don't believe in that kind of stuff. It's such a weird way to set your stall out for then going on to having a funeral.
I know what you mean. It was a little bit.
I felt really wrong-footed by it. I expected the celebrant to come out and say, this life is ended and we are celebrating the time we spent. Not like, oh, we don't have religion around it. I genuinely don't know how humanist funerals are done, and if this is like how they go. And I also think if I had lived my whole life in a humanist country, and we only ever had these services, I would think, yeah, great. So it makes me think, if I'm not a Christian and I'm watching Coronation Street and we have all these Christian funerals, how would I feel then? Would I feel different about all of these like very famous iconic funerals? Would I feel like an outsider watching something that I don't quite get, like I felt with the humanist funeral?
I think sometimes like traditions and religious traditions, people just kind of tolerate or put up with or accept that this is the way that it's done.
But that's our perspective. Like I'm not going to go into like our personal beliefs, but as a Christian country where not everybody is a Christian, we still have a connection to that style of service and that thing. Whereas if you were, say, a Muslim or a Hindu, you don't have that connection. Or do you? I don't know. Because of television, do you kind of have that same feeling about, oh, this feels familiar, even though it's not something I would do for my own family? Do you have that connection where you're feeling kind of a weird like comfort from the ritual?
The ritual of it, yeah.
And I never really thought like until maybe I got older, like how important rituals are to humans. I thought it was a bit kind of silly to say that, oh, we have these rites and whatever. Oh, how silly, traditions, etc., etc. They really are important to make, especially in times of great emotional stress, to have something that is kind of beyond your control, that happens no matter what. Yeah. And you can kind of like I know how this is going to go now. Like for the next hour, this funeral, I know exactly what's going to happen, and I don't have to think or have any input into it or worry about it at all. It's just out of my control. So when I watched this humanist kind of thing, I was like, oh, I don't know.
We got it with Hayley's as well,
yeah,
didn't we?
I didn't watch Hayley's again.
She had a bright floral cardboard coffin that she was carrying.
We saw that in real life.
We did see that in real life. And what did she come into? She came into...
I forgot.
Oh, Don't Stop Me Now.
Can you not pick your song in a church? Can you not pick any song?
Yeah, I think you can. But I don't think that church would probably allow you to come into Don't Stop Me Now.
I bet they would. I bet if you got a cool vicar that wore jeans, they'd let you. I just thought it was an I mean, I don't want to offend anybody who's humanist or has had a service. I just thought it was an interesting observation that it felt kind of, and I genuinely would like to see. Maybe investigate more into humanist funerals. If anybody has any personal experience of them and remembers watching Alma's or watches it again, how did it go? How did it compare to what it felt like? What is it really like to have a humanist funeral? It felt like, and I literally don't know if this is the case, but it did feel a bit like here's Coronation Street introducing the concept of a humanist funeral to the viewers rather than an actual funeral.
It did, and so we sometimes get that when there are services or rituals or ceremonies from other religions that Coronation Street just doesn't really dabble in too much.
Oh yeah.
Like when they had Sunita's funeral, there was like, oh, everyone's wearing white, and we learnt a lot about what Muslim funerals were like when Rana died. Yeah,
it must feel very othering if you're from that community and you're watching it, like having it explained to you, when you're like, yeah, I know, this is what we do.
Or does it just make you feel accepted more? I don't know.
I wouldn't like it if I was watching it and they were going, this is what they do, like, okay, this is what we do. I think, what was the other they did? It was the wedding? There was
Rana and Zidane.
No, I think it was Devon. Somebody had a wedding and they were like, oh, this is how it's done.
Oh, that was Devon Sunita. Yeah. And Roy was the expert.
He's like the
who'd
translator.
Read all about it. And this is the part of the ceremony.
I've looked on Wikipedia and this is how it happened. I think it is important to educate people. I just wonder how it's received in the communities where these things are not don't need any explanation.
I wonder. Going back to Alma's funeral, that was another good example of. I always like to see what the eulogy's going to be, and it does kind of wind me up a little bit when the character says, "Actually, I'm going to go from the heart." But Ken did the one at Alma's, and I did quite like that. You got a bit angry at one point because of the mix-up at the hospital that could have possibly prevented this horrible end from happening to her. But then you also got Audrey reading "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep," and sometimes having a character just reading out a classic funeral poem really does hit the mark and do the job.
Somebody else read this.
Yeah, I think maybe they did. I think that was Corrie's maybe used that twice. I don't remember. But what was good about Audrey's that I liked, and it was just a nice, simple way of doing it, is that it turns into a voiceover and the camera kind of cuts to outside and the trees and the birds, and it's not what other characters are doing. You know, sometimes they like to have somebody doing a reading about one thing and then to count there's somebody doing like something nefarious,
stabbing a grandma.
Yeah, but this didn't. It just kind of went to the outside, and it was lovely. And Alma's funeral was also really memorable because of her making the video appearance afterwards, which I think is the first and only time that Corrie did that. But everybody went round to Audrey's house afterwards, didn't they? And then she said, "Oh, Alma left this video. I think we need to watch it." And Alma's there filming herself saying goodbye to everybody. And I don't know whether that'd be creepy or comforting or what, but it was really lovely, the words that were written. And Anne was saying, "Look, I've come to accept that I'm going to die, so please understand that I'm at peace." And she says all her thanks to everybody. She gives like individual goodbyes to Ken and Curly and Hayley and Audrey. Ken. It's just all really, really warm and moving. And she ends it with blowing a kiss and saying, "Remember me."
Yeah, Amanda Barry was absolutely phenomenal in this.
She was so good.
I feel like if I was watching this, if I was part of this like collection and she said my name, I'd be like, "Can you just pause it? Can I just watch this by myself to make sure that she's not going to slag me off?"
Did you watch Blanche's funeral?
Yes.
Did you rewatch this one? I honestly think that this is one of the best Corrie's done. One of the kind of Corriest funerals for getting the tone just right.
This is like,
because they perfectly balance, I think, the paying tribute to Maggie Jones, who died the previous year, the real heartache that Deirdre clearly felt for losing her mum, but also getting the comedy right as well. And sometimes if you try and get a comedy into a situation like this, it just comes across as a bit crass and a bit shoehorned in. But this was brilliant because they had the 1 o'clock club turn up with June Whitfield there, who I think she was the one that came to Coronation Street with the news of Blanche's demise. But Anne Kirkbride doing her speech was so good. She kind of talks about feeling like an orphan, and then she kind of makes some cracks about her being a mean-spirited old witch, and the summary, just the very end of her speech where she says, "Now I can sum up Blanche in 2 words: my mother." And the power that she kind of delivers that with is just superb, and it really was a very fitting goodbye to Blanche, who is such a beloved and still is one of Corrie's most popular characters ever. They just got it just right.
I like the way the 1 o'clock club were seated along the top of there's like a 2-tiered.
Like where the choir sits.
They look like a bunch of ravens in a graveyard on a tree, looking down.
Yeah, this was also the final appearance of Archie Shuttleworth as well, because Roy who had many scenes with Maggie Jones during his time on the street, agreed to come back just for one last goodbye. And it added to that sense of kind of stateliness and occasion that was just right for Blanche, really. I
thought this was a very interesting as well, because obviously Deirdre had very complicated thoughts about her mum. Like, well,
she wound her up good and proper.
They were really like at each other's throats a lot of the time, and I think that lots of people would probably watch this and sort of think, I totally get this mixed emotion and not wanting to paint her like a saint in her final.
Yeah,
goodbye.
She wouldn't. That wouldn't have worked for Blanche, would it? The mix I just thought was absolutely perfect. There was also, it was almost a little bit like the old Corries, where they lent into the real kind of dourness of it, because as the coffin gets brought into the church, there's no dialogue. There's just church bells tolling. And tolling. Was that how you heard it?
Tolling.
Yeah, it was. It was just right. It was. This is a significant event that we're watching here. And I don't know whether I'm a bit torn about whether I like the Tracy involvement in it, because this was also Tracy had been let out of prison, because this is after she was in prison for killing
she wasn't let out of prison.
Not let out to see the funeral.
Yeah.
She was chained up, wasn't she? And then she gets into a bit of a scrap with Becky, who has kind of taken on the role of Amy's mum. She's jealous that Amy loves her instead, and it got a little bit argumentative and a little bit scrappy. But I think there was enough of the good stuff that it still kept the balance for me.
I think this is probably, if you were to boil down Coronation Street funerals, you get this. Because it's a beloved character. It's poignant because the person has died in real life, which I think adds something to it. It's a proper occasion episode, but it also has a bit of drama and a returning character or a new character, because they like to throw that in as well, don't they?
They do bring back somebody for the funeral. Like you had Nick came back for Don's funeral with a new head, and
Richard Hillman pitched up at Alma's. We didn't even say that.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he? At Alma's funeral, that was the introduction to Richard Hillman. Well,
hello, I'm a cousin.
You sometimes get that characters coming in as family members for a funeral. I think was Bev Unwin, was her first appearance at Shelley's sister's funeral? I can't remember.
Really don't know.
I know even Sykes first appeared at Dean Sykes' funeral. So yeah, they are a good vehicle for comings and goings as well of new characters.
As well as corpses.
Yeah, definitely some goings there as well.
Yeah, I think also it's funny that there seems to be more burials than would be. I don't know how many people get buried. I think it's too expensive. I think a lot of people choose to get are cremated because it's cheaper.
Well, sometimes they like to have a burial so that they can have some drama
at the graveside.
At the graveside, exactly, and the scene of it, if they can be bothered to do it, because they didn't with Billy. Everybody round the grave. I think it's quite
classic. But
visual.
I don't know if it's a really British thing or it feels like a really American thing.
Do you think?
But only because I watch television shows where they like to do that, like graveside, or like movies where they're like, oh, let's all stand around the grave and have a service. Like I don't think I think I've been to one burial in my life.
We've not been to very many funerals in our life.
No, but I've been to one burial. I don't really know how they go. Like, I would have thought if you had asked me, I'd do the whole service by the graveside, but you don't. You get to sit down and have a nice rest.
Yeah, sit on the pew, don't you? Let's talk about Betty's funeral, because I don't think we actually saw any of the funeral service of this, but this was one of Corrie's most controversial send-offs, because it was like retcon central, wasn't it? You had Betty, who sadly Betty Driver had passed away the previous year, and they decided...
This is 2012.
This is 2012. And they decided to rewrite some of Corrie history by making it so that Annie Walker had bequeathed Betty the pub when she died, even though Annie didn't own the pub. It was owned by Newton and Ridley, and then it was like, oh, Betty should be the landlady of the Rove's Return. Oh, it was like... And now that means it belongs to Gordon, her son, and Stella was getting her knickers in a twist because she'd bought it. It was a little bit silly, but I did like the scenes that they had at Betty's house, where I can't remember who it was. I think Gordon was there, and maybe Audrey, and Stella was there as well, kind of looking around through her stuff and finding like she had a crate full of Newton and Ridley's glasses in the garage, for example, and and finding this letter from Annie Walker was a nice little tug on the nostalgic heartstrings, however ridiculous it was.
It's also quite funny to look back on Betty just giving everyone stink eye and being a bitch. Like, she was thinking all the time, like, I own this place, you can't tell me what to do, I quit. The amount of time she said I quit in complete confidence because she owned the place.
Yeah, well, she talks about that because there's a lovely scene in the pub later for Betty's funeral that I think Gordon reads out a letter that she'd left, and one of the things she said was, "Oh, I was never one for retirement. I could never stick it for too long."
Yeah,
and I think that was similar to Alma's video message, like hearing from the deceased after all the sadness of the funeral services past can sometimes be quite cathartic, and it's like they're kind of still here a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
What
we also had Jack had his classic funeral with everybody clapping as the car drove down the street.
Oh yeah, I didn't kind of go much on Jack or Vera's funeral particularly. I think that they were just kind of standard in my eyes.
But Hayley's funeral, this was another humanist funeral, and also this was when Carla read "Do not stand on my grave and weep."
Yes.
So she's the other person who's read this.
Was that the one we said earlier?
Yeah.
I think that Hayley just copied Alma, to be honest.
Well, she's like, this is brilliant. Come into have a humanist funeral, come into a song you like, and have somebody read "Do not stand on my grave and weep."
This is another classic Corrie trope here that they've done a few times of somebody saying, I'm not going to the funeral, I can't do it. Because Roy was determined not to go along to this funeral.
He was mad.
Because he was mad still that Hayley, that she'd gone down the taking her own life route rather than, and ending his time with her short, he felt. So he had to be cajoled along. We had something like... I think Daniel wasn't going to go to Sinead's funeral or something because he'd been caught kissing Bethany beforehand.
Still sulking.
Yeah, so that's something they like to bring out every now and then. But Roy stands up and does this brilliant speech, and this was Ellen Taylor who wrote that. But he says that, you're all saying how, what a perfect woman Hayley was, but actually she wasn't. She was flawed, and that was what I loved about her. She was real, and she made mistakes like we all did. And I think it's at the end of the episode we get to see, Hayley would said came into Don't Stop Me Now, but she chose some classical music to go out on, and Roy's really kind of touched by this. And the celebrant says, oh yeah, well, Hayley remembered you telling her, Roy, that the violin was the closest instrument to the human voice, and this song that I'm going to play is the perfect duet. And that had it all in terms of emotions. It had the fun, it had the tears, and it had just kind of the calm serenity at the end that classical music offered. So that was a really good funeral as well, I think.
Yeah.
Although I do still kind of, when there's characters that say I'm not going along, I'm just like, oh, come on, please have together a little bit.
Ellen Taylor.
Come on, you're going to be there, aren't you? Speaking of characters coming into something a little bit different, or their coffins being carried into something a bit different, we got to give Deirdre a mention, haven't we? Because she comes into that feeling good. And I don't know whether that was particularly Deirdre or not, but this was another funeral that was a celebration of the life of Anne Kirkbride just as much as it was Deirdre.
I wonder if that was the song that meant something to her.
Yeah, I wonder. They also played Bridge Over Troubled Water at the end. I think that's what they had them singing. And that they did a really, really good send-off for her. There's a few light-hearted bits as well in it. There's a little bit where Gail offers Eileen a seat, so it's like, here are two rivals that are united in grief for this classic.
That was
character.
2015.
Yeah. But then what I didn't like about Tracy's funeral, I remember Deirdre's funeral, which I remember at the time, was Tracy was getting herself into trouble because Ken was mad at her because he believed that Tracy was the reason that Deirdre hadn't come back from Bev's house, which is where she was when she died. So Tracy was in the doghouse with Ken, and he does a really, really, really good speech, but there's a couple of lines in it where he kind of gets a dig at Tracy's poor parenting and it kind of spoils it a little bit. And they also had the drama of her going off and having a bonk with Robert, who's another character, which was like a comeback character at a funeral.
Disgusting.
So I didn't particularly enjoy that side of it. But yeah, William Roach did such a brilliant job. But this speech was like 3 or 4 minutes long about how great a woman Deirdre was, and he talks about her laugh and how sad he's going to be that he's never going to hear it again, and he talks about what a good friend she was, what a great grandmother and a mother, and there's a really, really heartbreaking moment when it's all over and Deirdre's in the grounds and Ken's left there. It's a little bit like Ina, really, at that earlier funeral, at Martha's funeral, when Ken's there and he says, despite everything, it was only ever really you, love, I hope you know that, and he has a bit of a cry, and it was really, it's all very well saying that really now. Touching. And they also had a great episode the next day, I think it was, or whenever the follow-up episode was.
The honeymoon?
No, you don't get those for funerals, you silly.
Oh.
They had all the characters going back to the Rovers and sharing memories of Deirdre, and you also then had Bev and Audrey making up, because when Bev had left, there was still a bit of bad blood over what had happened with Fred, and that was a really, really lovely follow-up episode. And at the end of that, Ken kind of puts Deirdre's picture next to Uncle
In the bin.
Albert's, and he kind of says goodnight to her. So yeah, that was a great funeral as well. But I want to kind of touch now on some funerals where it really was about kind of the drama as well, because I think all the ones that we've talked about so far have just been, did they do a good job of encapsulating why we should be sad about this character going, really.
Those are like farewells to characters.
Yeah, but I must admit that when there's a potential for a massive plot twist to happen in the funeral, if they get it right and you're on tenterhooks here, it can be really, really good. And I think the ultimate example of that was Maxine's funeral. Did you rewatch any of this one, or do you remember it? So this was after, obviously, Richard Hillman had finished her off with the crowbar, but he's there.
Polish him off.
He's there at the funeral, sweating out cobs,
buckets,
thinking, I'm gonna crack here. I'm sitting at the funeral of the person that I killed, and he's sitting behind Ashley and the Heavies, Maxine's family. And all throughout this as well, you get Audrey, who's been tailing Richard for the past couple of months, determined that there's something not right about him.
She's very suspicious.
And as they walk into the church, Audrey's there telling Norris, I think Richard might have tried to kill Emily and it went wrong and he killed Maxine instead. And you see her just start to connect the dots and be right. And so Audrey and Norris are kind of whispering about this as the funeral's going on. All the while, you got Richard there just looking like death warmed up himself. And then the ultimate kind of... We had this with Theo recently as well.
Yeah, it's classic.
Derek, Maxine's dad, is doing the reading, and then he's like, I can't do it, I'm too overwhelmed with emotion. And everyone says, Richard, you got to go up there and finish it off. And so he goes up there and he's like... and he's reading these lines about they that have done evil will go to the resurrection of judgment, and he's reading about, you know, this future of burning hellfire that he's going to be cast into. And at the end of the episode, it is. So don't be a serial killer.
Very concerning.
And at the end of the episode, he says, "I've got a confession." And this was still in the days of, you know, half an hour little break, half an hour later.
Half an hour they put a different show on, and you're like, I don't care about whether they're going to buy this house in Spain.
And after the break, he's like, "Oh, I confess that when I heard that Maxine was dead, I didn't think there could be any good in this world." And it's like, oh, and Audrey as well. You feel her frustration because you think, so close, but then at the burial afterwards, she snaps and accuses him in front of everyone.
You're like, what?
It was so good. It was because we were so heavily invested in that Richard Hillman story, weren't we? And we thought he's got to have his just desserts soon. And we've been saying, go on, Audrey, you're so close all this time, and this is the perfect backdrop for that to happen.
That was a really classic, good. Yeah,
and like I said, it was a little bit like recently we saw when Theo had to go and take over from Todd, didn't he, during Billy's funeral? And he's there saying, I can't remember how he ends it in the end, but he partly uses it as an opportunity to drop hints about how it was Todd's fault that Billy was on the road during Corriedale. But you think, is he going to say anything? Is anyone going to notice? Is he going to give any hints? We also had that during Tommy Harris's funeral as well. So this is when Katie had killed her dad, and she knew, the mum knew, Angela knew, and they're both there thinking, am I going to crack? Am I going to say anything? Extra bonus points for that one. Angela had put the murder weapon inside Tommy's coffin, so it's like, you just got to get through this service and then the murder weapon's gonna get buried along with the body. And Katie just really, really struggles to hold it together during the funeral, and then she goes up and is like, oh, it's all my fault. So it's again another almost confession, but then so Angela has to kind of jump up to protect her daughter and say, no, don't, it's all right, shush.
Not your fault.
She takes over the speech.
Stupid child.
I can't remember what the actress is called off the top of my head now who plays Angela, but I felt she was often quite underused during the whole of the Harris saga. But the last few weeks in between Tommy's murder and, you know, the end of the Harris family, apart from Craig, both her and Katie were absolutely superb. And that was a real edge of your seat sort of thing. Catherine Hunt, Gemma's just found the name of the actress. So I loved that. The Killer Katie story. They ramped up the melodrama like everything there. It was fantastic.
It's funny because in a funeral you have like there's the potential for the eulogy to bring up something, or somebody confesses, or somebody has to say something they don't believe, or etc. But also you have the weddings where you will have people in attendance like, oh, you're going to jump up and object, or like, I'm going to give a fake, jilt you and give a fake speech, or try to ruin it and stop it from happening.
They've never yet in Coronation Street had someone actually do a confession and go through with it, but it feel, they've done it a few times now where they've threatened that they would do it.
They should just do it, shouldn't they?
It was me, I killed them.
That would be amazing.
Then run off.
I think maybe the closest we've ever had, and it's not anything to do with a funeral or a wedding, was when what's her face, Kirsty admitted it was her that was actually abusing Tyrone.
Yeah,
in her
and then
court
she turned
case.
up in court.
That was so good.
Yeah.
That was so good because she did actually go, no, it was me, I've done it, sorry. Sorry.
You almost had the inverse of all of this at Joe McIntyre's funeral, where Tina is super suspicious that Gail was one of the...
Oh yeah,
was behind
there was a lot
his
of
death.
suspicion on Gail.
Yeah, so she kicks off during the hymn does Tina, and that was hilarious. So everyone was trying to sing along, and Tina's there shouting her mouth off, saying, Gail, you're covering up the circumstances around my dad's death. And then she ends up reporting Gail to the police afterwards, and that's what, in the end, gets Gail thrown behind bars. Another nice little drama I remember enjoying was Sharon Unwin's funeral, who was Shelley's sister, because that was a bit of a Vicar of Dibley 3 Christmas dinners kind of scenario, where Peter Barlow was supposed to be marrying Lucy.
Yep.
At the same time as being at his other wife, or was she his girlfriend? I can't remember who he married first. The funeral of their sister.
Yeah.
So he had to be there to bury Sharon, and then dash off and still be there to marry Lucy at the same time. It's like, is he going to get caught? He managed to go a little.
As long as he
longer
doesn't
after
slip
this.
up and say sorry for your loss to Lucy after they get married.
That was a real week for Corrie funerals, because the following episode was Richard Hillman's funeral, which was only Archie and Gail that appeared there.
Well, it's cheaper, isn't it? To
I think they went to different places. It was all very
what they should have got a
throwing the
package
cash
deal
away there, weren't they? That which was also the same episode that Maxine's Bench was unveiled, so there was a little bit of a juxtaposition there. Fights at funerals. Gemma.
Love a good fight at a funeral.
Yeah.
I sometimes I just go to the church and wait to see if somebody turns up for a funeral and fight them.
I think that I'm glad that Corrie doesn't lean into it too much.
I usually pick the smallest person.
I think that a near confession is probably my favourite bit of drama to happen at a funeral. Fights can be good. But sometimes I watch a fight and I think that it's just taking away from the solemnity
Stop ruining
of the situation
the vibes.
a little bit more. Adam Barlow's been involved in a few, actually, because when his mum died, he was just a little boy and he ends up running off because he's so sad about his mum being dead, and then he runs into the arms of Mike Baldwin, who chooses that time to reveal to him that he's actually his dad, and then Adam ends up punching Mike.
Harsh.
Yeah, I know. And then at Mike's funeral himself, you had Adam squaring up to Danny Baldwin and saying...
Yeah, I remember this. Because he thinks it's his fault.
Yeah.
And then Danny's like, I was the one looking after him. And Adam's like, oh, I loved it. Oh, my God. And then Ken loves shouting in churches. Because he has a go at Danny as well.
Yeah, he does. That was quite a good one. I really enjoyed... was it Molly's funeral, where Kevin gets punched into the grave? I think it was that one,
I knew
wasn't
somebody got punched into a grave.
I think that's probably the best Corrie fight.
2010.
Yeah. So Molly had died in the tram crash, obviously. And there's still this kind of lingering tension going on.
She's just jam.
Oh, she is a little bit.
That to like
not
scrape
much
her
left
up.
of her. Sally's mad at Kevin because she knows that he'd been having an affair with Molly before she died, and they're rowing outside of the church eventually, are Sally and Kevin. And then this is when Tyrone spots that Kevin is really overly cut up over the
Hang on
passing
a
of Tyrone's
Why
wife.
are
And he's
you
like, hang on
so
a
sad
minute.
about Molly? She was kind of lame.
Yeah.
I liked her because I was married to her and I had to, but you didn't have to like her.
Yep. So Tyrone punches Kevin into the grave and he's there sprawled out on top of Molly's coffin and he goes, "You bastard!" And the vicar's press him trying to hold things together by saying, "This is a place of worship. Let's just pray."
Imagine, this would be a great thing to use in an icebreaker. Like, you know when you go to these cringy and you totally blindsides you, you're like, I didn't expect this weird collection of people was going to end up with me having to tell an interesting fact about myself. But fun fact about me is that I punched someone into a grave.
Yeah, it's
So hard.
it's a strong visual, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think after the whole Kevin and Molly affair, Mulvin saga, which didn't really go down too well with the viewers, did it? I think that was a nice visual of saying we're putting this story to rest now.
Yeah.
Kevin literally there on top of her grave.
Would you find that impressive if somebody said that as an icebreaker?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What would be your icebreaker?
I don't know. I don't drop.
I do a Coronation Street podcast.
We had punches at Tina's funeral because this was when Peter and Rob were at each other's throats over who was responsible for Tina's death. So
they were both like, "It was me." No, it wasn't. I did it.
So they had a bit of a fight there. Recently, I think Dane Hibbs's funeral is a bit of a standout one. Do you remember this?
Well, that comes under the subcategory of fight/prison escapes.
Yeah, I know. I think, I think funerals with fights, generally, if I'm not that invested or not at all invested in a character, I don't particularly mind a fight. And if it's like a grand, like, if it's disrespecting the memory of a character.
Yeah, we can't have a fight at Ken Barlow's.
No, just imagine that. No, the Dane Hibbs one, because probably people are thinking, who on earth is that? This is Clayton's dad.
Who's that?
Clayton is Shona's son.
Who's that? No, we know who
Did
Shona is.
you watch this? Did you watch this one?
I think you'll find actually he's Jodie's nephew. Or is he?
Did you watch this one? Do you remember this one?
This was so we've had a return from prison with Tracy. We had Terry running away.
That was at a wedding.
Oh, at a wedding. Yeah, you're right. It's just the church that puts me off. Yeah, so Dane Hibbs, dead in the ground,
Yes.
isn't he? And Clayton's there allowed out to have a look.
From prison after stabbing Kylie.
Shona's there, and Billy's there, right? Billy the
But he's
vicar.
not officiating
No.
the service. He's there to support Shona.
Yeah, and then it's a planned escape, isn't it? It's not spontaneous.
Yeah.
He actually planned it.
It's kind of like they were going for that scene at the end of that one series of Call of Duty when the exit now.
Call of Duty.
Not Call of Duty, Line of Duty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Smash through the glass, escape, run away.
Yeah, that was great.
This is half the people standing around the graveside were actually involved in breaking Clayton out of prison, and then they start having a massive fight, cut his chains with the bolt cutters, and he's over the hill and far away.
I don't know where did they secrete the bolt cutters?
Good question.
I don't know.
At least we know where they got the spade from, which was just what they used
very
to
handy.
dig the hole with.
So
but I remember, it was silly, but I enjoy that one, and that sticks in my memory.
Shona realised something was up, told Billy just before they executed this plan of like just attacking everyone and pushing everyone over, and all of the extras were very obliging, stood and waited to be hit over the head.
Yeah, the one person is like standing there and Macca's behind him going, "Now!" and then hits him about 2 seconds later. But for those 2 seconds, the guard was just standing
like,
forward.
"Oh, I'm going to enjoy."
Maybe it's like the guards at the palace and they're like trained not to turn around for anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. Those guards, the palace guards, they're useless for anything after that, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, what's good is a security guard who's been trained to not move. A very specific talent set that is.
That was so. I that one particularly stood out for me. As I said, it was recent, but it was nearly 7 years or so ago.
I know. I can't. I was talking about something that's going to happen from 5 years from now, and it's 2031, and that really blew my brain.
Yeah, in our old people's mind,
I don't like the number 3.
Another recent Corrie fight, I suppose, was another minor character. Do you remember Shelley Rossington's funeral, the MND Shelley? And then you had her brother, I think I'm remembering this right, had to go at Paul during it.
Yeah, there was something, I don't remember what happened.
And then also, I suppose, at Paul's funeral, you had his dad,
Yep.
what's his face, causing a scene, didn't you?
What's his face?
Yeah, I think I'm going to say that I enjoy a funeral fight as long as it's all for good fun and not disrespecting the memory of a beloved character.
Well, would you say that Paul's one was that then?
Yeah, I didn't particularly like that
Yeah.
bit where the dad, I can't remember his name now, kind of stood up and ruined it a bit, and then that led into Bernie feeling guilty about Billy not, about lying about Paul not really being alive when Billy was speaking to him on the phone. So yeah, they sometimes they just don't quite get it right, and the drama detracts from what I think they should be going for a Corrie funeral.
So you talking about fights being light-hearted kind of leads us nicely into the subcategory of funny funerals. Light-hearted funerals.
See, this kind of thing, I don't really mind. As long as they do a good job of it, because, yeah, comedy funerals is something, it's fairly small on Coronation Street. There haven't been too many
Small
of them,
genre.
thank goodness. But I think that one of the most memorable funerals that had a bit of a comedy bent to it, and this is probably one of the first funerals that I saw on Corrie, was Derek's funeral. Or Dirk, as the Norris called him. And I don't know, you must have seen this, but I don't know whether you remember it. But Derek's obviously died out on the roadside, and on his funeral, Mavis is, and all the rest of the street are there to honour the memory of poor beloved buffoonish Derek. And Norris turns up, who had been a real a bit of a pain in Mavis's bum for the few previous years before this, because he'd kind of landed himself on their doorstep and made a bit of a nuisance of himself, becoming Derek's friend and house guest and getting him involved in various selling schemes. But anyway, Norris always used to call him Dirk, and Ken had been asked to do a eulogy at Derek's funeral, and then at this time when the service comes around and the vicar's like, I believe one of his friends here has got some words to say, and Norris, you see Ken start to stand up for it, but Norris is there and kind of stands up and almost runs to the front of the church, because it's like, well, of course I'm going to do it, I'm Dirk's best friend. And he gives his, I think they got the tone of it just right, that it was still, it was respectful in a way to Derek, but then also bad-mouthing innocently and maybe unintentionally Mavis all the way through, because he says, I remember the time when Mavis had driven off and forgotten Dirk at the service station, and that's how I remembered him, and also she forgot Derek's birthday this one time, and poor Mavis is there just kind of cringing away in the pew.
And he brings up Angela as well.
Yeah, he brings up Derek's ex-wife Angela, and all through this you've got I think you got Mike, who's talking on his mobile phone through it, and kind of and everyone's kind of turning around and saying, "What on earth are you doing on your phone?" Already on the episode, you'd had Derek's sister Edith turning up and making it very clear to Mavis that she preferred his ex-wife Angela over
wife.
Mavis. Exactly. So it was just a bit of a ceremony of errors, really, and you feel so sorry for Mavis, because this was the couple that just were, not to the extent of the Ogdens, but they were perennially bad luck and down on their luck, and a bit of a joke to the street.
Yeah.
And this then turns into this wonderful moment back at Mavis's house afterwards, when basically a load of people are just talking about Derek and saying what a bit of a joke he is. This Edith, the sister, says, well, people thought that your husband and you were a joke. And Mavis, brilliantly, quite out of character, I would say, stands up to this cow, saying that you don't matter. And then she makes this wonderful speech to everyone about how they probably thought that her and Derek were figures of fun, but you know what, we loved each other, and that doesn't matter. And my favourite quote from that is when she says, so thank you for all the kind words you said about what a wonderful man he was, and even if you didn't mean them, they were true anyway. And she doesn't say it with like bile or malice or anything. It was just genuine love for her dearly departed husband. And as a viewer, you can go, yeah, I did like Mavis and Derek. You tell them, and you
It reminds me of when Hilda stood up for Stan when everyone thought he was a peeping Tom.
Yes, you're right. That's a really good example, actually. It's just like that. Yeah. So I really thought that was a superb send-off for Derek. There were certain controversial circumstances around Peter Baldwin's axing, but because that was all part of Brian Park's clearing away of some of the well, he might have called it Deadwood of the Street, but that was he really did, I think, get a good send off, and it was probably one of Mavis's most triumphant moments ever. So the balance of the funeral of Norris leading up to punch the air moment for Mavis I loved. There was also a funny little moment where I can't remember the exact details, but Alec's there and he kind of comes up to Mavis.
Who?
And Alec Gilroy, and he's like offering his condolences, and I think he had a bill or something that Derek had left unpaid. I don't know what it was, but he's kind of talking to Mavis, and he puts his hands in his pocket, and he's like, what's this? And I think it's probably better. It must be Rita at that time. Is there next to Mavis and going, put it away, Alex. So she knew exactly what it was, and he's like, I was just looking for my watch or something. I don't know, but I thought that they really, really got that funeral absolutely right. Do you remember any other funerals that have particularly tickled your funny bone?
Well, Lewis had a pretty good send off. That was the same year as Clayton, not Clayton.
Dane
Hibbs.
Lewis's funeral, brilliant.
It was I never know how to say this word. Harem.
Yeah. I don't know.
You
know what we mean.
All of his fans, his fan club.
Because he was like the Thari of the street, wasn't he? He was.
So Audrey and Gail turn up with Mary, and she kind of scuttles around with flowers, but the room is just full of older women, including Claudia. So the celebrant is there. It
was a great kind of. I don't think Audrey knew to expect that. And you walk into the room and you see them, and as a viewer you're like, oh, they're doing this, are they? These are all Lewis's other women, all his other admirers over the year. It was so great. And I think this is the most out-and-out comedy funeral that they'd had, to be honest.
The context of this, obviously, is that Audrey and Lewis were about to embark on, their new life together as a couple. He was getting ready, and he died of a heart attack very unexpectedly, and so she was obviously devastated. But it all just brought it back, like his past as shady dealings and his...
Well, I think this is when Audrey's money had been stolen, I think, hadn't it? Maybe? That she'd inherited from Archie, and there was gossip about whether Lewis was going to be there conning her still. I can't remember the exact details, but yeah.
Claudia gets invited to come and do a reading, and she's written her own poem, which is brilliant and kind of a bit unlike Claudia, but we're going to let that one slide. It's okay. Evelyn says, one glimpse of a coffin and they all turn into Pam Ayres. Which is brilliant.
Yeah, Evelyn was there with like a flask of tea during this. It was so good. And you're right, that poem, she ends it by saying, save a space at the good Lord's table and I will join you whence I'm able. And Audrey goes, whence? Who says whence? And Claudia's like, I say whence all the time, actually. And Claudia's just totally not, because Claudia was her rival in business, in love, for the past 10 years, wasn't she?
Claudia and
Audrey.
And Audrey were rivals.
Yeah. And so
who's knocked?
Audrey's knocked. That Claudia's been the one that's there at the front saying the poem, kind of controlling this funeral of the man that she, like you said, was about to embark on a new life with.
Why didn't she get herself involved? That's what she gets for not planning it herself.
I guess you're right. I think it might have been to do with the money. I don't really remember.
Well, the winner takes it all is the song he goes out to.
Which again, perfect for him. There's the con man.
Audrey, as the coffin's being wheeled out, she marches up to the front, slams the brakes on and says, you're just Lewis's fancy piece. You helped him steal 80 grand off me. Arguing. And the coffin's going on a conveyor belt for the crematorium, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just about to go behind the curtain.
And it's like on this conveyor belt,
backwards and forwards as Audrey is saying, no, pull him back. I remember watching it at the time, and I remember some of the reaction online saying, no, this is stupid, this is farcical. You had Evelyn saying, oh, it's like the Generation Game. But I absolutely loved that funeral. I thought it was so funny. Lewis was a brilliant character.
He was super camp, wasn't he? Even his villainy was was done with a smirk.
I really wish they hadn't killed him off. I mean, Nigel Havers is still like touring at the moment, I believe. So they did not need to kill him off when they did. They could have kept him on, or because he was like he'd come in for a few years and then go off, and then he'd be it's a Lewis time. But yeah, that was such a brilliant send off, and to have Audrey and Claudia's rivalry right at the middle of it, it was just superb, absolutely brilliant. Other comedy funerals. I don't even think we particularly saw this funeral, but as a comedy funeral moment that I remember was Edna Miller's funeral, and this was early 2000s, mid to early 2000s. I don't remember. She was a worker at the factory, but she was. And I think, was she a barmaid at the Rovers or a cleaner at the Rovers, I think, for a little bit?
Is this the one with the
real dour face?
Is this the one with the twin?
Yeah. So yes. The whole shtick with this character is that she was always saying, I know somebody who died from this, and she had always a story about someone who's died. A little bit like Mary's got her mother's stories. Edna, it was something macabre like this. And so she's died, and then Shelley's like, I don't know what to write on her card, and then she writes "happy at last," which was brilliant. It's
really rude.
But the wake afterwards, you meet her sister, who's played by the same actress.
Yes, because this was like a joke. This was a joke.
It was a whole joke. Even like Shelley
never had a sister before.
No, she just turns up.
Idea.
Yeah, and she was in like 2 scenes, and it was the same actress playing the sister, called Iris Mary, I think it was, and she's just as much of a misery gets as her sister, and she says, don't suppose now that Edna's dead, you got any room for hiring again? And Alec's like, no way, thank you very much.
And she's thinking, I'm surprised I didn't go first. I've been under the knife so many times.
It was brilliant. It was a real funny twist, and it's almost. Well, it's not almost. It kind of was fourth wall breaky, really, because it was very much a wink to and a nod to the viewer to say, hey, look, it's the same actor again.
Yeah.
But it was, it's something rare. And she had like 2 scenes just for the lols, really. Even like at the beginning of the scene, Shelley's going around handing out sandwiches, going, dig in, fish paste or tongue.
Oh, God.
I really, really enjoyed that. It was utterly silly. And Edna was such a minor character, but she made a real big impression as just a comedy side character who wouldn't normally get anything for a funeral, to be honest, but this is a comedy gem, I would say.
Angela, who, speaking of Norris, Angela, who is his ex, she had a great funeral. It wasn't the funeral, it was the gathering of disgruntled gentlemen.
Yes. Well, they were not so disgruntled. It was they were quite happy to.
Well, no, I mean they were exes, weren't they? So they were.
Norris goes along to his ex-wife Angela's funeral, and when he's there, he finds these 2 other exes. One of them played by Paul Copley, who later went on to be Evelyn's beau, didn't he, Arthur, for a little bit. And they just end up becoming real firm friends for the next couple of months or so, and they agreed to start a society together. And one of the men, who was Ivor, was like saying, Norris, I believe you were 95 to 99. I was 02 to 03. He was 03 to 07. It reminds me of one of our friends who talks about dates in the same way.
Yes, very interesting way of describing things.
Yeah, so that was a real comedy story to come out of a funeral. And the only other one really that I can think of that made me laugh was Fred Elliott's funeral. And this was quite... And it wasn't a risk, because he was such a beloved character, and I think sometimes if you're going to put something funny in and risk ruining the moment that you want for such an iconic character, it could fall flat on its face. And actually, a lot of the funeral was really good, but it's all kind of tied up in Audrey's rivalry with Bev. As we remember, Fred was visiting Audrey when he died, but it was actually his wedding day to Bev. So like Audrey's there visiting Fred's open coffin at the Chapel of Rest, and Bev comes in like a screeching harpy saying, get away from him, get away from him. And at the funeral, she gives this real melodramatic wailing widow sort of speech, which includes her saying things like talking to the coffin and saying, "I do take you to be my lawfully wedded husband." And she says, like,
is it supposed to be fun? Was it supposed to be funny?
It was supposed to be funny because you cut to the reactions of the people in the congregation going, "Oh my God," especially Audrey. Ashley, fair play to him, does get the opportunity to do a more serious eulogy, and I think that the inclusion of that was really important because, you know, Fred is such an iconic and beloved character. If they just made his funeral for the laughs, even though he was a comedy character, his dramatic, you know, John Savardon was absolutely superb at those dramatic scenes, wasn't he? So having Ashley there as the bereft son, and, you know, he'd only known that Fred was his dad for, you know, less than 10 years. It was really, really good. But then, as similar to Lewis, there was just a bit of comedy as the coffin gets conveyor belted off because it's too big and it can't fit through the hole it's going through. And that was so funny for Fred, you know, larger than life in every way. His coffin couldn't fit through the hole, and Audrey just ends up cracking up saying, "Oh, that's Fred all over." So I think that they did a really, really good job with Fred, and there was a bit of concurrent drama going on in the episode with Jamie and Frankie and the whole semi-incestuous stuff there that they were whispering around by the tree. But that
incest
was
and a funeral. What else could you want?
I'm glad that they don't do it too often because there is such a risk that if they're going down the comedy funeral, they'll just get it very, very wrong. But those ones to me that's Corrie at his best because it is the mixture of the comedy and the drama, isn't it?
I suppose
it's been known to do so well for so many years.
About having Fred have a comedy funeral, even though he was a very popular character, and it's sad that he died, is he was a comedy character anyway, so it doesn't really feel out of place. Like, it would feel very, very weird if they just, like, out of nowhere went, "Let's just make Deirdre's funeral a bit funny." Yeah, or this character was overweight. We never made a thing out of it, but let's have him too big. Let's just slander him after he's dead.
Yeah. I don't know how we can even segue to this next segment, but I think
that's not very well. It's not very well structured.
Sorry, I didn't plan this very well, darling. But the baby's funerals.
Right, so this is where you depart from us
warning.
if you are not. If you don't want to listen to this.
Do you think that this is something that a soap should shy away from because it's just too sad, or is it right for Corrie to do it when it needs to? If you're going to kill
off a kid, you've got to have the balls to actually follow through with a funeral.
Yeah, I mean, it took a very, very, very long time for Corrie to do this.
Nothing is sacred on Coronation Street anymore. Every tragic thing. They don't do taboo stuff. They won't go into political stuff, really, and identity politics and that. But they kill off a kid if they think that they might get some mileage out of it.
And they really do like to pull on those heartstrings, don't they? I mean, you've got to have a shot of the little baby coffin.
I think that's the worst thing you can have.
It is. It's so sobering.
Sad. So sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad. Because when you have the funerals with, you know, you get 6 people carrying the coffin on their shoulders, and then when you have the tiny ones, it's like, you know, Nick for Billy Platt, so Sarah and Todd's baby, Nick just carries it.
Yeah, carries it in his arms. He's just one of him. That was kind of the first big baby funeral that they did on Coronation Street.
Which Nick was this?
This was Adam Rickett Nick. I think it was. We spoke about this earlier.
Surprised his hair didn't get in the way. I can see where he's going.
They didn't, in any way, very rightly, go through any of the kind of the wisecracks or the.
Oh my God! Well, of course, why would they?
But they still had some drama because
you know what this baby funeral needs? Fart jokes.
We were talking about this earlier, but this was when Todd wasn't allowed to go to the funeral, but then they turn up anyway, and there's just a nice moment of acceptance of Sarah Lou to Todd when she passes over.
It's a healing moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was when she passes the box of dirt to him to scatter, and Eileen and Jason and Todd are given time to grieve. Probably Earth, I would say. Yeah.
The vicar going, right now, grab a bit of dirt. Let's just get this done today because I've got to go off and do something else after this. I can't be having a great big hole in the ground left like this.
They did such a good job, and the actors kind of, it must be a big weight on their shoulders, mustn't it? Because
God,
if you're going to get any dramatic scenes right, then the funeral of a little kid has got to be. You can't drop a beat there. You got to get it perfectly.
So this was 2004, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they didn't. It didn't take up the whole episode. Some funerals really do cannibalise the whole episode. Like I think I remember Blanche's taking a really good chunk of it, but this was enough.
It was a good day out, wasn't it?
But also in the same episode, you had Leanne come back. There was the episode where Les finds her working at the. Was it a strip club or was it an exotic dancers club or something like that? So they did have the
I don't know what the difference is.
I think
I'm sure there is a technical
mostly
difference.
kept her clothes on.
I think one of them's what you put on your CV and the other one is what you actually do.
So I think that that could have been the most somber, sobering, depressing episode of Coronation Street ever had they not put in a few of the lighter moments
Leanne
in the other scenes
getting
as well.
a kit off.
Yeah.
Floozy.
We also had, there was a bit of a funeral for Rory, wasn't there? I think when Michelle.
Don't say bit of a funeral.
There were some scenes. I think he had two actually, because there was a scene. There was a proper funeral scene where Michelle and Steve were there in the chapel, and there was this tiny white coffin with a white rose on top, and Michelle's just sobbing all the way through it, and Steve does a speech from the heart. But then I think they also had a send off at a beach for him. Do you remember?
Yeah,
that?
I do remember that.
But I mean, we were not the biggest Michelle fans, but Kim Marsh did such an amazing job in that story.
Well, it's a very deeply personal story.
Exactly,
I
was going to say, yeah. I mean, she was drawing us sadly from experience there, but
which is what she's
great.
publicly spoken about it, so that's why we discuss it on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's not...
And then obviously recently, was it recently? I don't know. What's his time? Oliver's funeral.
When was this?
This was 2000, because this is when they.
No, it wasn't 2000.
Sorry, 2020. I mean, because they couldn't have Ollie on screen because of social distancing.
Well, he was dead. So...
Well, no, before, while he was in hospital, I mean. And again, that was, I think they got it just right with the seriousness of it. Do you remember much about that?
They had Victoria Gardens Memorial, didn't they? And a tree was planted. And was this before or after social distancing?
I think it was during. I think people were in bubbles when this was done.
Did they depict that on screen though? Because I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so. I think they were just all sat around the edges of Victoria Gardens.
Coronation Street didn't really do very much about what the practical implications of COVID were for people's everyday lives.
Yeah, take away from the Rovers, and that's all we need to do.
They almost completely skirted the entire thing, which is what we kind of needed as a collective to take our minds off of what was going on. But it's really interesting because quite often I think of Coronation Street as being a little bit of a historical document, maybe about what we wish we were like or what we see other people as being, not necessarily who we really are. And so if you were studying in 200 years time, what was it like? You'd watch this program and go, oh, nothing happened. I don't get it. Yeah. So they weren't. The reason I brought that up is because obviously during COVID you couldn't be next to people, and we had experience of attending a funeral that was socially distanced, and it was really weird. It was so weird and quite unsettling. And even we couldn't sit next to each other. That was so odd.
No, we had to have a few metres apart from each other, didn't we?
It's sad that Coronation Street couldn't really get their teeth into sort of reflecting our experiences of COVID, but I think probably it's for the best in the long run for our mental health.
Maybe you're right, but anyway, I just think every time they've done a child's funeral on Coronation Street, luckily on the rare occasions, I think they've really, really hit the mark brilliantly there, but. And yeah, I don't think that they should shy away from it, because sadly it is something that people experience.
Well, if you're going to
say we're going to reflect anything from modern life, then this is part of it. Sadly.
I think I'd prefer it if they didn't do any kind of medical death storylines, but it must be especially
everyone's got
triggering.
something that's going to be triggering to them.
If you're a parent.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just say, it's outside, all I can hear is bins blowing around. Is that someone's bin?
I don't know.
Hear it?
I couldn't
it's
hear it
really
at
windy
all.
here. and I
I
can
don't
just
think
hear
our
a
listeners
bin.
will be able to hear it.
No, I know, but it's
Imagine
really
it, though,
annoying.
everybody. Sorry, well, we'll go.
Or maybe
investigate
somebody's
the mess.
wheeling a coffin up and down the driveway.
I think we touched earlier, because we can go into it a little bit more now, about the whole different cultures, because most funerals are on Coronation Street are the traditional C of E affair, and then you get your odd humanist one with Alma and Hayley. But I always find it fascinating when we get to have a little peek into a different faith. I mean, I was talking about Tommy Harris earlier, and that was a Catholic funeral, I remember. And that felt, even that is mostly the same, isn't it, as the C of E one.
Are we allowed to go to them?
Yeah.
Because Catholics can't go to Protestant funerals.
Is that right?
My nan's next door neighbour, when my granddad died, wouldn't come to the funeral because she was Catholic, and I remember her standing on the front lawn as we were getting into the cars to go away to go to the funeral with a coffin in the hearse and everything, and she's just crying her eyes out.
Well, Corrie had something similar in a way when Brian died, Gail's Brian Tilsley, because obviously his mum Ivy was very staunch Catholic and Brian had been raised a Catholic, and she was determined that he would have a Catholic send-off, but Gail was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to... I think she ended up having a Christian funeral, but it was just very non-denominational, and Ivy was she was having kittens about it, and really... And I've got a lot of sympathy. I've always had a lot of sympathy for Ivy's character, because she always gets portrayed as this Harridan, this massive pain in the bum for Gail. It's almost villainous, isn't it? But she just had such a strong faith and a strong conviction to the Catholic Church that she just couldn't get her head round sometimes that not everybody felt the same way as her. And so when Gail arranged this other funeral for him, she was like, I can't do it. She actually literally had to go to a priest and get reassurance from him, a Catholic priest, that, she wouldn't, that God wouldn't stop Brian going to heaven for not having a Catholic funeral. He did offer to do a private mass for him, which Ivy and Don went along to. But I thought that was really, really fascinating. And I always loved the clash that Ivy's Catholicism brought to Brian, Gail, other characters. Yeah,
I mean, why did Gail do that, just to be annoying to Ivy? Because Gail's not like a mega Christian.
No, she's not. But I think she, if she was saying that Brian was not a Catholic,
was he not?
I think by the time he died and he was being a bit of a philanderer.
But was he raised Catholic?
Yeah.
I think that makes it a bit different.
Well, this is exactly
but
what
it's
Ivy
interesting
was
though,
saying.
isn't it? It's very interesting. My mum's Catholic, I wasn't raised Catholic. I don't know what my mum wants to have. I wouldn't imagine she wants a Catholic funeral, but I don't know.
Well,
my nan didn't have one, and she was the mega Catholic of the family.
So that was kind of interesting. We don't get many Catholic funerals, but I like just to compare really. But what's really fascinating to me is when they delve into some of the other faiths, Abrahamic or otherwise, and you got Sunita's funeral, which it was the Dev and Sunita wedding was very, very. This is a cultural event. This is Dev riding in on a horse. This is all the colour. This is all the different ceremony and rituals they do. And actually, Sunita's funeral was very low key. It was in a room that you wouldn't particularly be able to tell was a mandir, but it had some symbols on the wall, some Hindu symbols on the wall, and Dev was dressed in white, and you had Adi and Asher in white as well, so we were learning a little bit about white is the colour of mourning in the Hindu faith.
Adi googled it first.
Yes, exactly. But that's kind of worth watching if you like the Dev dramatic stuff, because he really does break down. And Sunita had been having an affair with Carl, hadn't she, before she died?
Disgusting.
But Dev kind of gives this passionate speech about how he's lost his soulmate and his best friend and his best mother in the world, and how he felt so guilty for letting her go. And it was interesting, but it wasn't like, look how different Hindu funerals are to Protestant funerals that we usually get to see on Coronation Street.
Yeah, wasn't like the wedding.
No.
Where it was like, look at this.
No, the real standout different religious funerals that we've had on Coronation Street were probably the Muslim ones, right?
We had a couple of Muslim funerals, like Cal, who was Alia's dad.
Yeah, he burned up in the Victoria Court fire.
And Rana, who got squashed by a roof.
Yeah, now both of these took place in a mosque, and it's fascinating to me. I've visited mosques on our school trips a couple of times, but I don't think I had then. So that was a really interesting peek into that particular.
It was 2015.
Yeah.
Was Cal's.
Yeah, that was a really interesting peek for me into the ceremony and the ritual that goes on there, because you had. You had all the men in one room, and I think this was it was made a thing that Leanne had to stand outside with the women and watch through the little slits there to see what the men were doing, and then you got to see them kind of standing in their rows facing the wall at the front, the Qibla wall, and saying the prayers all in Arabic. And I think you had Ken and Gary that were there as well, just kind of joining in but not joining in.
Ken's there going, well, usually I am the one who does the eulogy, so I thought I'd come.
No, my Arabic's not the best, so I think I'll just be a bystander.
I'll just let someone else do it for once.
But I found that really, really interesting. And then in Rana's funeral, it's kind of is, again, looking at what the women are doing. And so you've got Sarah, who was Rana's mum, and Yasmin and Kate, the nearly widow, but they didn't quite get married. Jenny and Toya were there as well, and they got their headscarves on, and you get to see the women going around the coffin, and I just found it really, really fascinating, and I'm glad that Corrie didn't shy away from doing that, because they very easily could have, couldn't they?
What do you mean?
They could have said, well, we won't show the funeral of these characters, or we'll just say that they wanted to. We'll just say that they wanted to get a funeral, in a random place. But I think that. I think for neither for Cal nor Rana, nor really most of the Nazir family, I never felt that we really got that much of a glimpse into their Muslim faith.
No, not at all.
Zidane was maybe the most devout.
Zidane was the most devout, and then you have Alia, who observes Ramadan.
Yeah.
But you don't get much else about it, and obviously, probably the reason why they decided to have the funeral is to give closure to this drama with Sarah, who obviously was quite angry at Kate because she didn't approve of their relationship. And so, for various reasons to do with her morals based on her religion, which is not divorcing and then not being a gay woman, and so she told Kate not to come, but then she ends up inviting her when Kate writes her a heartfelt message. She probably put hearts over the eyes and stuff.
Yeah, and you do get some conversation between the characters of there are people here who do not approve of Kate because of the reasons you just said, and there's this lovely scene, tragic scene really, with Imran talking to Toya about overhearing some of his uncles saying, maybe it would have been better if that time we tried to kidnap Rana and take her over to Pakistan, if they'd done it she would have still been alive. And
it's true, she would have been alive.
It is true, but
she wouldn't have been that happy probably.
And he was like saying, all these hypocrites.
It's hard to say.
All these hypocrites are showing they're supposed to be really devout Muslims, but they're saying they're mourning Rana when they clearly think that she's going to hell, and he's just really struggling being around all these other mourners in the family. And I don't think they literally said they are Muslim, so they think this, which I think was the right call. But you do just get the impression that the family were very anti.
Yeah.
The Kate and Rana. They were not hardcore Kana fans, shall we say.
They weren't hashtagging it.
But there was such a lovely moment at the end, because Imran has to go along to the burial ceremony, which is a men only ceremony, and he doesn't want to go there because of all these horrible uncles that are saying all these nasty things about Rana. But then Johnny says
is
that
Kate's dad.
Yeah, Johnny Connor offers to go along, and he's almost like, it's almost like I'll be your dad kind of thing. Because this was after what was his name, Hassan. The Rana's father had died.
Yeah.
So she was, she didn't have a dad anymore, and Johnny was like, I'll do it, because she was Kate's dad, and it was just a really, really lovely moment. Imran's dead
being
chuffed
supported.
about this. Yeah.
Dead chuffed, is he?
Dead chuffed, he is.
Yeah, I mean, Coronation Street really does it. I think it's a bit wary to wade into too much of like
religious
anything
politics.
that can be. Yeah, you're exactly right, and I think there's probably very good reason behind that. So this was very interesting.
Yeah, it was a kind of a light touch, but they were, and
I think the reason why they felt as though this was an avenue that they could go down is because at the time they still had practicing Muslims on the street who balanced out that, especially Yasmin, who was very supportive of Kate and Rana, even though she was an observant Muslim. She said love is love.
She did. I think that she wasn't as observant as even like Sharif, and I kind of get the impression that Sharif kind of cajoled her along with it, and once he left, she relaxed.
I mean,
I've
said before, I have my problems with how they depict Islam on Coronation Street, because it feels like they forget about it most of the time and only bother when
it's Ramadan.
It feels
so
like they want a brownie
it.
point for like remembering it's Ramadan or something. It doesn't inform any of their actions apart from when they're challenging their faith.
Maybe they won't drink.
So I can't remember what I was saying. What was I saying?
I don't know. Well, you said that. I think you were just saying that Corrie doesn't always get it right, but
no, the reason, so you said that Yasmin wasn't observant, and I said, well, she's the nearest thing that they had, and so Coronation Street probably felt more comfortable to go, look here, there's some intolerance, because we can say that because we're not saying all Muslims are this way, because look at Yasmin, look at Alia, they're accepting, blah 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 blah,
and even Imran, because we saw him. He was dressed in the Muslim attire, but he was definitely not an observant Muslim. He didn't have a Muslim funeral, did he?
No, but what's that got to do with it then?
Well, no, I'm just saying he was another example of somebody from a Muslim background.
Yeah, I know, but but you can't use him as for my example.
No, okay, fair enough.
He was just another type of person who has been culturally raised in a Muslim household but doesn't follow the faith at all anymore.
Yeah.
But that doesn't erase his childhood and his upbringing. But it doesn't inform his current decisions.
He ended up having a secular funeral, didn't he? Much to Sarah's chagrin. She did not like the idea of him not going to the mosque, but Toy was quite insistent.
See, I don't really know the rules about religious like Christian religious funerals and stuff, and secular ones, but I do remember there's something about you can't have certain readings, or you can't have too many religious ones. If you're going a secular part, you can't have hymns and too many hymns, but if you're having a religious one, then you can't be like, right, we're not doing hymns or prayers. There's some kind of percentage of something, because we had the same thing when we got married. So you've got to have a certain number of religious elements if you want to get married to the church.
We couldn't not have hymns at our wedding.
No, I know.
Could we?
No. But what I'm saying is, like a secular. You said he had a secular funeral. No, I'm just saying. I wonder what's the legal definition. I bet there is one.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there is. I think that's kind of about it, really. I think we've kind of run through the main Corrie funerals that I wanted to cover, but I know there's so many more, and people are saying, why didn't you mention this, why didn't you mention that? But what's kind of a final takeaway then? Because I kind of left my research of this really fascinated by the progression of Corrie funerals over time, and I really love watching those the 1960s one of Martha's and even Stan's, and reading about what they did for Ida Barlow, and thinking, wow, it was such a different world back then, having scenes like 3 minutes long with musical overlay of hearses going down the street, and it was just so maudlin, and people are, because that was back in the day when people would send flowers to Granada Studios when the character died, and so it was like you were inviting the viewer to be a fellow mourner. And it's not like true. That these days, is it?
I also
We're watching it from an outsider's point of view and maybe thinking, I hope there's going to be a bit of drama.
I also think people revelled in like mourning and gave themselves time, and back in the day, and I think we like to repress it or like pretend we can channel it into some kind of some kind of positivity, which I don't always think is helpful. Like I get why people say, I want my funeral to be a celebration, everyone wear bright colours. I want people to cry at my funeral.
We're not blasting your ashes into space.
No,
like
but I
Paul,
also want to cry. I want to cry at people's funerals. I want to wear black because that's how I feel comfortable. Because I feel sad. I'm not going to a funeral if I don't care.
Yeah, I think...
And also, don't forget, at the very beginning of Coronation Street, a lot of the people who were in the show were literally Victorians.
Yeah.
They were born during the reign of Queen Victoria. There might have been a baby. They might have been very young when she died, but they were still literally Victorians.
Yeah, they still had that Victorian spirit somewhere, didn't they? So yeah, it's really fascinating. And I would say, if I was going to kind of recommend a few to you to go and watch, go and watch Martha's. You must have seen the Stan.
Can you watch Martha's? Which one can't you watch?
You can't watch Ida's. You can watch Martha's.
No, I want to watch it now.
I believe. I would say Blanche's was fantastic. You may go one way or the other with Lewis Archer's funeral, but honestly, I found it absolutely hilarious. Just the whole thing. It was a comedy scene.
I think also I watched Billy's funeral. Billy's the most recent main character funeral.
Yeah.
And so I watched that and I was thinking, I'm going to compare this to like the early days of Corrie funerals to see what's changed. And I was kind of expecting to sort of come away thinking, oh, it's not as good as it used to be, or they've reduced it, blah, blah, blah. I think if we had recorded this podcast maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we would have been saying that. But I think they're back to seat filling, which I think is the most important.
They're getting there.
I think they're pretty good at it. Don't forget that like the proper early day ones, you would have filled the 3 pews with everybody literally on the card.
Yeah, that's true.
So I do think that the effects of COVID have definitely disappeared, and maybe they're back on track with their block filming and getting people in, because I honestly think it's not worth doing a funeral unless you're going to make it look real.
Yeah, no, I
and
agree.
Have people go who would have gone. And I don't care about the old Corrie phone call, but the day before I can't make it because I'm not.
Oh yeah,
Just
well, they even
it.
had. I think it was also, I was reading about Ida's funeral. David Barlow didn't turn up because Alan Rothwell couldn't make it. He was doing some other work, but then there was dialogue in the episode that said, "Oh, he was at the back.
He's just over there,
and now he's just turned up at the door. Frank, go and see your son." But we never actually saw him. There's no good way around it, really, is there?
No, they're going to AI it in the future, so look out for that.
Yeah, God, they will, won't they? So anyway, that's some of my recommendations. I definitely would say Derek's funeral is worth tracking down, watching, just for fun, and that magnificent speech from Mavis at the end. I'm going to say, if you were interested in watching story that's related to the funeral, so like a span of episodes, definitely Tommy Harris's is absolutely brilliant with the Killer Katie storyline. The Maxine's funeral and the episodes before and after with Richard's guilt eating away at him, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, they're probably for me the ones.
Favourite funerals?
Those are my favourite Corrie funerals.
And
I would say.
that.
I wouldn't recommend the fights necessarily. Apart from possibly Molly's when Peter gets punched into the coffin.
That there, everybody, is a free sample of our Patreon content where we do top 5s every month.
I'm not ranking them. That's
We're not
just
doing
a
top 5
a couple that I've plucked out.
We could do a top 5 Corrie funerals, but we're not going to. So make your own.
Whose funeral is going to be next? Well, we know that it's going to be one of 5
it's going
people.
To be somebody.
Isn't it?
That's a really good point. Yeah, somebody is going to get a funeral in April.
Yeah,
that we may or may not see.
Are we going to say Tara Cocker as Theo gets lowered into the ground, or
what?
or what for the others? I don't know. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I really hope that they keep on doing them, because we see that church so little. I know it's expensive going out I'd be really actually fascinated to see what Theo's funeral would be like, and whether he would have wanted a religious one, or whether...
Oh, he'll want a religious one. I think he's going to go full... Is it Malvolio? I think he's going to go mad.
Is it just as he's on his deathbed saying, I just want to have a TV funeral. I'm not renouncing my faith, because he has a little bit now, hasn't he? He's certainly not a regular churchgoer anymore after the whole conversion thing.
But I was going to say, for Meghan's funeral, do you think they'd have like a guard? What's it called where you all stand like on to attention down?
What do you mean? I don't know what it's called.
Down a road, but of PE teachers all like blowing their whistles really sadly.
I want to know. I know it's maybe a bit of a maudlin thought. Like, what are they going to do for Ken? What are they going to do for Rita? Because it's going to happen, isn't it?
I know this is the.
There must be a contingency plan. There must be ideas. It's like before the Queen died.
Oh no!
You know, London Bridge has fallen.
Oh no!
What's
the code?
What's the code for Barbara and?
My tea's gone cold.
But for both of those, I'd almost not even. I wouldn't even try and risk making them in any way funny. I think that they just have got to do a really good tribute. I don't want drama. I don't want secret affairs going on in the background. I don't want Tracy doesn't want to come to the funeral, but maybe she turns in the end. I think for both of those characters, they've been in the show for so long, they've got to do a superb and fairly straight job with it, I would say.
It's
maybe if Rita's
really
a soon,
sad.
have Mavis come along to it.
It's going to be really sad.
It's going to be.
I don't know why you brought this up at the end.
Well, it's just see. You know, got to finish on a sad note. You've been talking
no, you
about
don't. Where I know we haven't done any formal podcast training, Michael. But where in any kind of podcast advice have you ever read? Always leave on a sad note.
Okay, let's say, what do we want for Sean's funeral? Let's have it's completely fabulous and
who's
flamingos down the aisle.
What would be your best Corrie funeral, and who do you want to die? And I think everyone's going to say at the moment Theo, probably, which I think is, Carl's got to get put his finger out and start being a bit more villainous, because Theo's really living in the dust.
Yeah, I think for a good Corrie funeral, there's got to be somebody that's left behind that you can feel really, really sad for. Like, Ken at Deirdre's funeral.
Hilda at
Stan's funeral.
Mavis at Derek's.
Like, yeah.
How about Jodie, but she gets cremated and then stuck in her trinket box? It's kind of like at the end of Superman, where all those villains got trapped in the glass or whatever.
Yeah, I think having someone left behind, which is another reason why long-term couples, beloved couples, are so important.
Yeah, can't wait for Tim to die.
But exactly, you got Sally and Tim. Actually, that is going to be
super sad about it.
Super sad, but if let's say that Adam died, and you're going to have Alia going. Oh,
no,
that's
excuse
so sad.
me. Alia is really good at that. Remember when
Luke
she made
died,
a bloody shrine?
She did, right outside the garage, you're right.
Like in the really inconvenient place, and everyone was like, can you do, now we can't use the garage.
But yeah,
it's
what
really
made
rude.
some classic Corrie funerals so good was because of who was left behind. Like Ashley after Fred's funeral, Ken after Deirdre's funeral. Ashley after Maxine's funeral. Poor kid.
He's always going to be here.
Who?
Left behind. Us. Everyone who's listening. The Coronation Street viewers. The fans. We will live on. Even after every Coronation Street character has had their funeral, we will still, as a collective, as a spirit, we will live on forever.
Okay. And
these words will be recorded and put into a spaceship and blasted into space.
Fantastic.
And I'm really excited about it.
Okay. Well, there we go, everybody.
Oh, and also, can somebody send me some money, please?
That is the end of that. Is this is the final. We're shuffling. We're in our own coffin now, and this whole podcast is shuffling out through the curtains to get to your ear holes. And
we're playing "Don't Stop Me Now."
Yeah, exactly. I hope you've enjoyed it in some.
There we go. We didn't end it on a cry.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite an interesting little corner of Corrie's history to delve into.
Very macabre topic, but hopefully we made it a bit light-hearted and you enjoyed listening to all the different ways that you can be remembered on the street.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the end of the episode.
Bye.